Welcome to Equity Equals on MichiganBusinessNetwork.com with co-host Angela Austin and Bill Morris. Equity Equals is a celebration of social entrepreneurship and the leaders that impact Michigan's double bottom line.
Hi, I'm Angela Austin with One Love Global.
And I'm Bill Morris with New World Flood.
We'd like to thank you for joining us for our very first show on the MichiganBusinessNetwork.com. And we invite you to join us as we talk about all of the great things happening in the nonprofit sector and the richness that the social entrepreneurs in Michigan are adding to our valuable economic bottom line.
Absolutely, Angela. This is an exciting time in Michigan. We have the profitability finally coming back into our businesses. We have vibrancy in our nonprofit sectors, and we're beginning to see some of the tangible results of some regional efforts. So we can definitely dig into those topics.
Bill, I'm really looking forward to having these conversations, not just with you, but with so many of the leaders that we come in contact with through our nonprofit work. We do a lot in the charitable sector. I know you and TJ are doing so much with New World Flood and with One Love Global. We started in Detroit, and now that we're here in Lansing, we've had lots of opportunities to interact with all kinds of organizations all over Michigan and all over the country, as a matter of fact. So we look forward to bringing those conversations into this program.
Absolutely. We've had great opportunity, particularly over the holiday season, to work with a number of faith-based charities. Faith-based charities are the foundation of charity and charitable giving, so it's absolutely the right time to talk about that topic.
Yeah, I'm hoping that that our business community will kind of see the value. There's so much of what we do in the nonprofit world that we do because of the business sector. Philanthropy is really driven by the private sector and those who find it of value to give, not just to organizations like yours and mine, but all kinds of causes, whether it's health, education, whether it's the arts, even mentoring and leadership programs, what we're going to talk more about coming up in future shows, but really looking at how the nonprofit sector is a really valuable and really invaluable third leg to the stool that kind of holds up Michigan's sector. So we have our public sector, we have all of our for-profit businesses, but nonprofit sector businesses really do a lot to drive our economy in ways that I don't think are really known to the general public.
Circulation of that dollar is important. We in the nonprofit world are part of that circulation, that economic engine. The circulation of that dollar directly relates to the vibrancy of a community. We live in a vibrant community. We live in a state that's emerging from some difficult times, but we are regaining our vibrancy. And so everyone has to continue to remember that giving is investing. It's not giving away.
Absolutely. And since this is our first show, Bill, why don't you tell us a little bit about New World Flood? I'm familiar with what you do, but it'd be great if everyone in Michigan can learn more about New World Flood and what you do and how it does, in fact, impact the double bottom line in Michigan.
New World Flood, where a single raindrop is the beginning of a flood. New World Flood is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we are all about community service and volunteering. We volunteer or flood in 4 areas. First, we do inspirational visits that we call our flood visits, and we do those in schools and in boardrooms, in community rooms, what have you, and we inspire folks to do volunteering, which leads to our second area, which is training. There's no such thing as a smart volunteer unless you make them that. And we specifically take our volunteers through training. We do screening. We make sure that the best volunteers get into the best situation, and the situation gets the best out of each volunteer. Our third area, or buckets as we like to call them because we're New World Flood, is actually doing the service. We have events like Battlefield Brawl and the Jacqueline Barham Challenge, High Five Turkey Drive, as well as the Back to School Expo. So we have some specific organizational events that we take our volunteers that we've trained to do this good work in doing. And then our last area or bucket is global service, and we support a school in Arusha, Tanzania. So we have interest all over the world, as well as locally here in Michigan and in mid-Michigan. 1, 2, 3, 4 buckets, and that is New World Flood.
Well, Bill, that was a great overview of who New World Flood is, and actually it's through your work in the community that we actually came together and how we actually ended up doing this wonderful radio show together. TJ Duckett, as your CEO, he has been so gracious to come out into the community, and for One Love Global, through our youth leadership program, which is called the Peace and Prosperity Youth Action Movement, there's not been a time that we asked TJ to come out and share, or even just to be there to encourage the students. And so we certainly appreciate the impact, your visibility, your willingness to just show up whenever there are children involved or a need or something that actually needs to happen in the community. So I'm looking forward to continuing that work with you.
And if you recall, the first time that we actually met was also out in the community where we had a local high school that needed some community support. And we came together, our organizations came together. The high school happens to be my alma mater as well. And that's the first time that I met you, and you were already out supporting causes that are near and dear to me.
Absolutely, Bill. It's been a pleasure working with you up until this point, and just from that one connection that we have continued to work together, and I hope will help other organizations see how they can better collaborate, how they can build those partnerships that not only get their mission across, but actually can have a bigger impact in the community.
Yes, collective impact. Absolutely. Let's keep amplifying what we do.
Thank you for listening to Equity Equals. We'll be right back after the break.
He the baddest, bad meaning good to you automatic. He gave it to you, it's yours, you can have it, grab it.
And welcome back to Equity Equals on MichiganBusinessNetwork.com with co-host Angela Austin and Bill Morris. Equity Equals is a celebration of social entrepreneurship and the leaders that impact Michigan's double bottom line.
Well, you're probably wondering who that wonderful voice was that you just heard, and I'd like to introduce you to our co-producer, Ms. Cameo King, who just happens to be the founder of Good Girl Radio. So she is an expert on radio and really helping us get our chops together here with this show. Thank you so much, Cameo, for all of your help.
Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this wonderful project. I'm excited and looking forward to the great conversations that will be had really about changing the landscape of how Michigan does business.
Wonderful. We're looking forward to working with you on this. Tell us a little bit about Good Girl Radio before we move on with our guest who's waiting here in the studio with us, Miss Stephanie Butler. But first, we'd like to learn a little bit more about Good Girl Radio and how people can actually tune in to your program.
Definitely. So Good Girl Radio is essentially, it's my baby. It's another media project, and the interface is on the website on goodgirlradio.com. And it's a conversation between women. It's a conversation of confessions, about honesty, about transparency, about things that we go through. And it's not so heavy, but sometimes it's serious, sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's light. But it's really about making sure we have those connections and we're open and we're honest with each other so we can really begin, whether it's the healing process or just getting through life a lot easier.
Well, I hope that you will take some time to visit goodgirlradio.com and learn more about the beautiful Cameo King and what she's doing over there. And for now, we'd like to turn our attention to another beautiful woman that we have here in the studio with us, Miss Stephanie Butler, who is the Executive Director of the Church of Greater Lansing. And you can learn more about them at icoggle.com. But for now, we're just going to let Stephanie tell Bill and I what they have going, what Church of Greater Lansing has going on. And first, I'd like to kind of set this up a little bit so I can tell you why we are talking with churches, why faith-based community, why even bring the faith community into a conversation about the nonprofit sector. But for those of you that don't know, most churches are tax exempt. They are considered nonprofit organizations, but what you may not know and what you'll learn a lot more about today is really the value that they bring into all sectors. People of faith walk across all sectors. They work across sectors, and in addition to what they do in their faith life, they have an amazing impact on what we do in the nonprofit and the public sector and even the private sector. So welcome. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Thank you so much for having me, Angela. I'm excited to be here today.
Wonderful.
Appreciate that.
So we met. So, 2 years ago?
We did. 2 years ago, I interviewed you when we were doing the community survey. process there. You were one of our leaders over One Love Global there. We just asked you some questions, trying to get to know some people in the community, and really here, the faith community is known for doing really mercy work, what's known as compassion work out in the community, but oftentimes we're not taken seriously because we're not considered data people. So one of the things we decided to do with CAGO was to go out and start asking some questions, do a little bit of a community assessment by talking to the leaders that are already out there, the who's who, and find out what we didn't know. Because really, the truth is, you don't know what you don't know. So you were one of those individuals, and I think we interviewed you, and your eyes just kind of lit up when I talked to you about the process and what we were doing, that we were looking to link leaders together and connect those of similar heart and passion to one another so that together we could work through more of a collective impact approach and collaborate to better our community.
Absolutely. I was really fascinated and impressed with the process and just the time that you took to actually sit down. The questions themselves I found truly engaging, and as you know, I've just been after you ever since then to learn more about Church of Greater Lansing and how One Love Global and how I, as an individual can serve and support and really better understand how we can better collaborate across sectors. You mentioned collective impact. I'm going to ask Bill to talk a little bit about collective impact and what that really means, because it's a clever term, but really, what do we mean when we say collective impact?
That's a great.
When we talk about collective impact, one of the easiest ways to think about it is our faith. We raise our children in a faith. We attend church. We talk about faith, and faith is often interwoven in our education system. It's often interwoven in the messaging or in the mission for our businesses. So we have the faith-based community, we have businesses, and we have even education. So you have, in essence, three entities that when they work together, the impact in that community is exponential. And that is the key to understand that when they work together. Now, you can replace faith-based with a nonprofit, with cause-based, but faith is generally where we start learning about causes and learning about championing causes and learning about taking up and taking a stand for the things in which we believe, because faith is the foundation for all that. And that's why the importance of discussing faith first, as opposed to all the other nonprofit organizations, is key right now.
That's excellent. Thank you, Bill, for helping illuminate what we mean by collective impact, in particular what we mean when we talk about having that kind of impact with our faith-based partners. Stephanie, we're going to continue this conversation and moving into our next segment, but I definitely am glad that you're able to be here with us and that you're able to stay so that we can continue the conversation. We're going to learn more about what Church of Greater Lansing was doing in 2013 and what you're going to be doing in 2014.
Thank you for joining us on Equity Equals on MichiganBusinessNetwork.com, produced by One Love Global in partnership with New World Flood and Good Girl Radio. A special thanks to Chanel Henry for blessing us with our featured soundtrack, Dream It.
Got something on the inside, can't hide. God gave it a gift, the gift is can't deny. Don't let nobody hold good. He the baddest, bad meaning good to you automatic. He gave it to you, it's yours, you can have it, grab it, run with it, go have fun with it.
Welcome to Equity Equals on MichiganBusinessNetwork.com with co-host Angela Austin and Bill Morris. Equity Equals is a celebration of social entrepreneurship and the leaders that impact Michigan's double bottom line.
Well, we are so thrilled to continue the conversation with Stephanie Butler, who's the Executive Director of the Church of Greater Lansing. Now, Stephanie, the last time that you and Bill and Cameo and I were all together, it was towards the end of last year. Tell us a little bit about the event that we were at and what's happened since then and what you're going to be doing in 2014.
Thanks for asking, Angela. Yeah, I think the last time we saw each other, all of us were at the Marketplace Forum, and it was kind of a culmination of the survey process that we conducted over about a 2-year period that we had discussed in the previous segment. And basically, we were just sharing the results of those surveys. We interviewed just under 70 leaders and asked them all very similar questions, trying to determine what the primary felt needs of the regional community are. And basically the results of that were, number 1 was education, number 2, job creation, number 3, family, number 4, infrastructure, number 5, healthcare, and then the final one was crime prevention. And what was most exciting to me, and you had helped facilitate that meeting, some people listening on the air may not be aware of that, we had such a great time. There was such an energy in the room, both among nonprofit leaders, church and faith leaders, and community leaders who were all maybe learning for the first time that they care about and are involved in very similar areas. So what was exciting for me to was kind of see the overlay of the survey results that we had gotten from our 2-year process, really, of investigation, and to be able to overlay them with organizations like the Power of We Consortium, who's been in this process for several years, almost a couple decades, asking these same types of questions more among the secular and social leaders in the community, but to find out that the questions that we were asking of these faith leaders, who 85% of those that we interviewed were leaders of faith or who claimed to be Christians, which was entirely encouraging to me personally, that these really are the same issues across all the varied sectors, and that we all have a felt perceived need that they are similar. That was encouraging to me. Would you say that that was the same experience for you?
Absolutely encouraging. And you mentioned Power of We Consortium.
Yeah.
So I want to back up to that a little bit,
Yeah.
and how Church of Greater Lansing even came to be connected with Power of We Consortium. Every county is required to have a human services collaborative body. Ours is on steroids, and it's called the Power of We Consortium. It's a network of networks, and it is comprised of 12 community coalitions that represent various kind of aspects of the work in our community, from substance abuse to our aging population to youth. So tell me how Church of Greater Lansing got plugged into something like Power of We Consortium, and what do you actually hope to do through that relationship?
That's a great question. And the reality is we're wanting to be taken seriously. The faith community is passionate about meeting out the mandate of compassion work, with oftentimes overlays and overlaps with a lot of the community nonprofit work that's happening out there. So it was important to us to be considered as serious, quite frankly. And you were the one actually that connected us with Isa and made the introduction in regards to the faith community component there was missing and had been missing for years. So when we received the invitation, they voted us on officially last year, and we welcomed that nomination with great expectations.
Well, and vice versa. I think from the community provider perspective, being a 501c3 nonprofit leader myself, we're always looking for ways that we can have deeper impact. And as an organization that works behind the scenes as backbone support to other organizations, one of the things that we hear a lot is, where are the churches? Mm-hmm. How do we get the churches involved? Wherever there is a need to be filled, that is like the top 3 questions to come up. What's the church going to do? Mm-hmm. And so at that event, I learned that the church has initiated some of the institutions that we come to just, we really take for granted, and we understood that they were from the public sector. So can you talk a little bit about the faith role in actually creating these institutions?
Sure. I mean, some of you may be not familiar with the reality that the church really founded the hospitals and the schools initially, and what we've done great at is getting out there and say, hey, this is a need. There's a justice issue here. We want to see something done about this. But what we haven't been very good at is remaining connected to those organizations as they grow and as they flourish and as they continue to sustain themselves. So what we're trying to do now is we're kind of backpedaling a little bit, and we're saying, you know what? We're sort of apologizing and saying we recognize that there's still a need for us to remain engaged so that the principles that were set forth originally can continue to be upheld, and that those individuals that we've left these organizations in the hand of aren't feeling abandoned, that, yeah, we're all excited about it in the beginning. Yes, it's an important justice issue, but now we're not backing it when the rubber really hits the road. So I think it's an exciting new venture.
Yeah, I think that we see these connections, but not necessarily coming together. And so having faith-based partners at the table, I'm sure, is a need that's across the state of Michigan. So if you would, we're going to be coming to a close on this segment here, but if you have time, would you be willing to stay and talk a little bit about something that you shared about how faith is actually helping organizations in the communities better meet the needs of their communities, and maybe this is something that other communities might actually want to adopt for themselves?
I would love to.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Angela.
And thank you for joining us on Equity Equals on the MichiganBusinessNetwork.com. The show is produced by One Love Global in partnership with New World Flood and Good Girl Radio. A special thanks again to Chanel Henry for blessing us with our featured soundtrack, Dream It.
Integrity, preserving legacy. The dreams now become a reality. You could be what you want to be, you could do it. Put your mind to it, let it flow like you rebuilt, revive. Work the word, keep hope alive. Yeah. You've got to believe, you have got to believe.
Welcome back to Equity Equals on MichiganBusinessNetwork.com with co-host Angela Austin and Bill Morris. Equity Equals is a celebration of social entrepreneurship and the leaders that impact Michigan's double bottom line.
Okay, Stephanie, when we left the segment, we were talking about some special resources. We were talking about some of the unique things that you're bringing to the table. Can you elaborate on that now?
Yeah, I'll specifically talk about what's called Meet the Need, which is probably my favorite resource that we're offering both to nonprofit organizations, communities, government agencies, and anyone who really touches in the areas of compassion and or charity or helps. Basically, Coggle's partnering with an organization called Meet the Need. It's a not-for-profit organization, an NPO, and it's a charity whose mission is to dramatically increase the impact churches, ministries, and their communities have by mobilizing more people that are in the faith community to get out into the community and connected to the organizations that are really doing the work well.
So we're talking about taking the parishioners and putting them out into the pastures.
That's right. Well, and connecting them with the organizations that really are skilled and are equipping volunteers well, much like your organization. You're out there, you've been doing it for a long time, you know what you're doing. So what it does is it takes some of the administrative and training workload off of the faith community, and yet gives the organizations and the agencies and the nonprofits the resource of people and really donors and things of that nature that they need.
And there's a term in the business community called micro-volunteering, and it follows a similar path where people are actually getting paid to do service work during their work day. It's specific, it's targeted, they're taking their skills and their talents and they're putting it to use. And it sounds like the faith-based community has a similar function.
It's a similar function, but the beauty of it is that it's free. These people are doing it because they're passionate about it, because they care about it, because it aligns with their faith. And what I love about Meet the Need is that it's a multi-site integratable network. So in other words, it's not a silo website. For example, the city of Lansing has it integrated into their website, but it looks like the city of Lansing's website. People can log on and look at the needs in the community there regionally or according to gift or according to area of passion. So if they're passionate about helping the issue of hunger, helping with the issue of hunger, they can sort by that. They can sort by zip code and geography. So there's a lot of ways. It's very personal. You can personalize what it is you're looking for. That's what I love about it. And then additionally, you don't have to go to one site to get there. So for example, every single church in the region, every single NPO in the region can integrate it into their website. It looks like they own it. That's what I like the most about this, because it's very difficult. What we've been running with the past, some of the software that we've been looking at is that it's sort of what we call silo software. In other words, we're trying to filter everyone to a single website to get them to utilize a tool that's helpful both to their organization and to the community. But it's always difficult to get everyone to go to one place. But if you can make it kind of like an Amazon.com, which is kind of how this functions, basically, it looks like they own it, it's free, it has multiplicity of functions, and the reality is it's user-friendly. It says, hey, I want what I want, when I want it, how I want it, where I want it, and is it out there? And yes, it is. That's the beauty of it.
This reminds me a little bit of web rings, and web rings was in the earlier version of the internet where you did try to show some of the internet, some of the interconnectivity between websites that were aligned. And I like the idea, and certainly in 21st century, it's hard to talk about doing any work without talking about software or an online presence. So the ability for someone to come in, say, this is my passion, or this is my purpose, this is what I want to see delivered in my community. They can plug in, they can find that resource and find that that faith-based community, find that nonprofit community, and then deliver that service. That is an excellent, excellent resource.
It is. And the other thing that it does for the nonprofit organizations of the faith community especially is it frees them up from some of the administrative components. So, for example, let's say somebody over at the City of Lansing has a mobile food pantry that's going on, and basically a volunteer cancels. Not only does it update their website for them when that volunteer cancels, but it updates all the websites in the region and all of the sites that it's integrated into, which is very helpful to those of us who work with nonprofits who know we're, lightly staffed. That's just a reality.
Right, and so dependent on volunteers in order to deliver not only our events, but just the backbone administration part as you're discussing. We've got to know who's coming in and when, and we know that people are late, but it's just like working a job. Still have to notify, still have to understand that the work remains to be done regardless of who's there.
Exactly. So it simplifies things a little bit on the admin end for the NPOs and those who use it.
So talk to us a little bit more about what's coming up in 2014 for Coggle, Greater Church of Greater Lansing.
Thank you for asking. Basically, the Church of Greater Lansing has a monthly prayer component that we do. Every single month, we have a conference call, and you can join us. We invite any Christian business leaders or Christians or anyone that's interested in praying to join us. The number is 605-562-3000, and the access code is 382338. That happens every third Tuesday at 6:30 a.m. And then we have a face-to-face prayer time down at Mishap at 322 West Ottawa at noon every third Tuesday as well. We host only 4 quarterly summits a year. We do what are called catalytic events. You're familiar with that terminology, Bill. I'm sure you guys do the same thing. But bottom line is we're trying to do large events that really bring about more awareness and connect leaders within the community and churches in the community to organizations that already exist and are doing the work well. So it creates awareness, it creates excitement, it creates opportunities for people to get equipped and connected.
Okay, and for those folks who are listening on their iPod or driving in their car, are they going to be able to find this information on your website?
They are. They can go to icoggle.com, just like iPhone, icogl.com.
That's excellent. Sounds like we've got some excellent things happening here in 2014. Certainly excited, Stephanie, about the things that Coggle and you are bringing to the table, and we're looking forward to continuing to have you and have this conversation as we go forward.
Thank you so much for having us, Bill.
And thank you for joining us again on Equity Equals on the MichiganBusinessNetwork.com. This is produced by One Love Global in partnership with New World Flood and Good Girl Radio. A special thanks again to Chanel Henry for blessing us with our featured soundtrack, Dream It.
Dream it up.
Thank you for listening and welcome back to Equity Equals on the MichiganBusinessNetwork.com with co-host Angela Austin and Bill Morris. Equity Equals is a celebration of social entrepreneurship and the leaders that impact Michigan's double bottom line.
All right, as we are coming into our final segment, we have with us a representative of the Power of We, and I'm going to allow all this time for introduction.
Sounds good. Well, thank you, Camille and Bill. It's such a pleasure to be here. Appreciate the invitation. And my charge here is to give you some more information about dynamic work that the Power of We Consortium is doing. And when I say we, I truly mean we as a community. There isn't one individual, one entity, one agency that oversees and coordinates and aligns the work of the consortium. It's truly a collaborative effort. And the Power of We Consortium is an inclusive planning and implementation multi-purpose collaborative body that promotes system reform in Ingham County. Each county in the state of Michigan has a Human Services Advisory Committee, which was the original name of the Power of We Consortium. It consisted of 16 original organizations, such as the Capra United Way, the City of Lansing, and the school districts. What we've been doing over the last year is essentially working with agency partners, community representatives, and One Love Global, hopes here in the community to figure out how we can adopt a common agenda to move the Power of We from an information network to more of a action-oriented network that is really intentional about targeting underlying causes and root causes that are causing a lot of the social issues here in our community, in the Tri-County area. Although we are Ingham County based, we do collaborate with our folks in Eaton and Clinton County. So we do have those partnerships with folks in the outer layers.
And talk a little bit more about the regionalism aspect as you talk about moving from information-based to more of an action-based. And by the way, Issa, you didn't introduce yourself to the people, so make sure that they do that because they need to put the name with the organization and what's happening. But talk more about the importance of the regionalism.
Absolutely. My name is Isaiah Solis, and I'm the coordinator for the Power of We Consortium. And the regional aspect is truly what we're trying to bring forth to the Lansing area. When we talk about the regional environment of the Eaton, Clinton, and Ingham counties, we're really talking about the capital area. And although, as I mentioned, Eaton and Clinton have their own multi-purpose collaborative bodies, we have a lot of agencies that function in a tri-county capacity. For example, Cap Area United Way serves Eaton, Clinton, and Ingham counties, such as community mental health. So part of that aspect is how do we make sure that we are collaborating with folks in Clinton and Ingham counties to address some of the issues that we're tackling as a community. So that's part of that aspect.
Now, in previous segments, we've talked about collective impact. And as you apply regionalism, moving from information to action, help our audience understand how much does community impact play into you being more regional?
Absolutely. It plays a huge impact. Just to give you just 30-second history aspect on the Power of We Consortium, it was founded as an intermediary for state funds to be allocated to organizations and agencies here in Ingham County. We have moved away from that model and really tried to look at the assets and the resources that are currently existent here in Ingham County to address that collective impact common agenda that we've developed. So over the last year, this is what we've done. We brought together community representatives, community agencies, and leaders here in Ingham County to adopt what we call a set of core values and norms. And over the set of 2 months, we asked folks, if you're coming from various systems, and by systems I mean institutions such as community mental health, the Ingham County Health Department, Michigan State, the foundations, when we come under the umbrella of the Power of We need to really hone down and adopt some values and norms that we're all going to follow. So over that time, we developed 6 core values, which are equity and justice, respect, accountability, courage, collaboration, and collective action. So what do those mean, Bill? It essentially means that by equity and justice, we're going to work as a community to empower all members of the community to challenge inequities and barriers that prevent social, economic, political, and environmental opportunity. And that resonates with community members, but it also resonates with the community leaders who are at the forefront of a lot of these institutions that either intentionally or unintentionally are causing some of the inequities here in Ingham, Clinton, and Eaton counties. Respect. We talked about honoring the inherent value of our dignity and our own individual diverse actions. So each individual has a different format, a different way, a different methodology, pedagogy of viewing the world. So what we came about as the Power of We Consortium is that we said we were going to respect each other's diverse opinions and try to dissect how do we bring those diverse opinions together. Accountability. It's very important. We decided that we were going to be responsive and responsible and representative of action and results. So we're not only going to be responsible for the process, but also for the results that come about from adopting this common agenda. Courage. A lot of the work that we do takes courage in the community. And what we built over the last 4 and 5 months through our monthly Power of We meetings is that ability for people to have courage to really call out inequities, to really call out power, to really call out some of the aspects that are perpetuating inequities here in the community. The other aspect of collaboration, we're trying to strengthen a lot of the collaborative aspects here in Ingham County.
Well, Issa, that is sounding like some amazing work that's happening, backbone support work. Again, as we look at some of the things that happened in the previous year with some of the strikes and the walkouts, so we talk about the situation in the fast food industry and some of the issues relating to a living wage. Equity keeps coming back. Equity is the name of our show. Equity is what we're talking about, and equity is important to business and business development. So as we're wrapping up, is there anything else you can talk about, including a plug for where they can find more on the Power of We?
Absolutely. You can go to our website, www.powerofwe.org. We traditionally meet every Friday at the Ingham County Human Services Building, the third Friday of the month. And we also have 12 community coalitions that we collaborate with. And you can also find those schedules online.
Thank you, Issa.
Thanks.
For more information, you can head to oneloveglobal.org as well as newworldflood.org. Thank you for listening to Equity Equals on the Michigan Business Network, produced by One Love Global in partnership with New World Flood and Good Girl Radio. A special thanks again to Chanel Henry for blessing us with our featured soundtrack, Dream It.
You even thought to ask, who's bad? God is good, he the baddest. Bad meaning good, good to you automatic. He gave it to you, it's yours.